It looks like Daniel Garcia was interested in joining WWE. All of this while his contract with AEW looks to be expiring soon. We're going to tell you everything we know about this and whether or not Daniel Garcia could be headed to the land of the Giants all the way to WWE. We're also going to provide an update on Stone Cold Steve Austin's status for WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. Will he be there? Well, Austin kind of teased that maybe he would. We also have news of a WWE signing that is turning a lot of heads and also garnering a lot of interest. All that and much more coming up right here in this video. So be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get to the news and talk about Daniel Garcia, one of the the hottest free agents in all of professional wrestling, and someone who at one point did have interest in WWE and vice versa. He had a WWE tryout a few years ago. That did not work out. Ended up going to AEW, where he has made more than a name for himself and really has been an important piece in the AEW puzzle ever since he joined. And one of the things that I always bring up is at that show, that Rampage where CM Punk debuted, the First Dance as it was known, the main event of that show was Jon Moxley versus Daniel Garcia. And this is someone who in 2021, when he was just about 21, 22 years old, was trusted to be in that spot. And it shows you the level of a talent and the potential that Daniel Garcia had even at that point. And as we've come to know, that potential is even more boundless than we all could have imagined, considering what he's done over the last number of years. Dave Meltzer, though, of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, did provide an update that kind of shed some light into Daniel Garcia, his thought process, and whether or not he at one point was interested in WWE. Here's what he had to say in the recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Quote, "The general belief remains that Daniel Garcia will sign a new deal and feud with MJF upon his return. The angle itself was shot with that expected, but his contract was running out and he did have interest in going to WWE. Although he'd likely have had to start. There we go. That's what I was trying to say in NXT. That's still possible but AEW was always expected to be the spot he'd be, probably because a guy like him could probably get a better money deal in AEW, but there was interest in WWE as well. So this dispels any notion that AEW was the only likely landing spot for Daniel Garcia, or is still the only likely landing spot for Daniel Garcia, as it is still unknown whether or not he has signed. All indications show that is not the case. He is not re-signed, but is expected to by many parties, many reports. Now, this, of course, brings up an interesting conversation about, Daniel Garcia, where he sees himself and where talent and the general broader wrestling public sees him. The truth is the truth. If Daniel Garcia were to go to WWE, like Meltzer said, all likelihood, he would probably end up in NXT, being a very important and I think big star there, and would help, honestly, introduce him to the WWE style and audience more. But also the flip side of that is, do we think that Daniel Garcia needs developmental? Answer to that question to many wrestling fans, I think, would be no. I think Daniel Garcia has proven, especially over the last 2 years, that he's more than capable in the ring. He does not need training. He has proven that he is able to get an act over. Like, say what you want about the dancing shtick, it might not be for you, but the reality is that when he comes out, everyone's arms go up and they love it. So he's got that character aspect, that WWE character aspect, whatever you want to call it, down. Promo, I think he's a very compelling promo. Does he have room to grow? Absolutely. The dude is 25 years old. I think there's definitely room to grow there, and there's even a case to be made that WWE could be the place where he owns that. But we've also seen people do it outside of WWE. Look at a guy like Just Jack Perry, and what he was able to do just in the short time away from AEW. Last year, Jack Perry was not a good promo. It is unconscionable that he has elevated that game to the point where it is today. Right now, if you go and look at the digital promos that AEW releases on their social media, Jack Perry is running away with how great he is in that role. And I think that he is proof that you can do it outside of WWE. And I think Daniel Garcia, over time, given the locker room that AEW has, the mix of, veterans with younger guys, it's going to do well for them to mesh together. And, I think there's a lot that Daniel Garcia can do to elevate that part of his game. But other than that, he's got it all down. This is a guy that you want to build around. Like, we want to talk about the next generation of pillars for AEW. Like, MJF, Sammy Guevara, all these guys have kind of more so established themselves to varying degrees. We talk about the next generation of pillars. Like, a guy like Daniel Garcia is right there in that conversation. You have a guy like Dante Martin, who's also right there in that conversation to be the next pillar of this brand. And I think that's where AEW sees Daniel Garcia. And that's why they, I think, will be willing to pay him more money, quite frankly, than WWE, because they understand that AEW in many ways needs guys like Daniel Garcia, homegrown talent, to stay in AEW, not only to help build the company and make it, a must-see product, but also because it helps build that reputation as AEW being a place where people want to be. That is what you want. Because right now, WWE is the place that people, quote-unquote, want to be. It was AEW at one point, but perceptions changed, the pendulum has shifted, and it will shift back. Don't get me wrong. Like, we will get to a point where AEW becomes hot again and, interest in WWE wanes because, it's cyclical, right? It genuinely is cyclical, and that's just how the business goes. And, again, we will see when that happens, but I expect Daniel Garcia to be a big part of that, rejuvenation of AEW that many people expect to see. And I think he'll be there for a while because it's understood that he is a key piece of what they are trying to build and do in All Elite Wrestling. So we'll see what happens there. Daniel Garcia, obviously, one of AEW's most important pieces, and another very important piece to the broader wrestling world is free agency. And WWE just signed a pretty decent free agent that we're going to talk about in a second, because a WWE Hall of Famer's son has signed with WWE. Mark Henry's son, Jacob Henry, has announced that he officially signed with WWE. This is via Mark Henry making the announcement at Remix Rumble recently. And, Jacob Henry is someone who we're not, new to seeing on WWE TV. If you guys remember back when Henry was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, he was seen in the audience sporting that now infamous salmon jacket that Mark Henry had during that retirement promo that he cut on John Cena and swerved everyone. One of the greatest swerves in modern wrestling history, for sure. And Jacob Henry now has signed a deal with WWE. I believe this is part of the NIL deal. Jacob still has a bit of time left in college. He is a football player. He was also a key part of the Oklahoma Sooners wrestling team there. And he says that he plans to continue to wrestling for the Sooners. And he will eventually, make his way into WWE. And we've seen this happen time and time again. The NIL has really helped bridge the gap between college and WWE and make, WWE another potential landing spot for these prime athletes. And it's a really good way of going about it in a business sense for WWE, because what you want to do is you want to position professional wrestling, and, in WWE's case, themselves really, as an alternative to the NFL, as an alternative to the NBA, as an alternative to whatever other sports and athletic federations are out there. And by doing that, you are able to use a pool of talent that, quite frankly, not everyone who plays college football is going to be good enough to go to the NFL. That's just the truth. And a lot of them might not want to go to the XFL, UFL, whatever it's called. But you have another, option here if you're a young person who's about to graduate and, you have all these athletic abilities and, like you have this passion, you can do something with it, And I think positioning themselves in that way has made WWE not only, another place and another option for these people, but it's helped build that brand. And I think, like, again, I comes back to branding, it comes back to that. I work in PR, so I'm always going to be like really honed in and talking about that. But it really does help the branding because, I think we're gonna get to the point where like people are already doing this. They're posting on Instagram being like, hey man, I'm headed to WWE. Like it's almost akin to National Signing Day or whatever. I'm choosing Georgia over Alabama, and then the mom's crying, whatever. But I think this is like what WWE is doing here is great, and bringing in legacies like Jacob Henry also helps reinforce this idea amongst wrestling fans, and help build up the mystique for Jacob Henry before he even debuts. So hopefully we get to see him in the ring fairly soon. I know he has to wrap up over there at Oklahoma, but we'll see what he can do, and I'm interested. Maybe they'll bring him in and finally like go full circle with the hand story. That would be hilarious. If WWE makes Jacob Henry the hand that Mae Young gave birth to a bunch of years ago, I would lose my stuff, and I would honestly just be enjoying the hell out of professional wrestling at that point. Let me know in the comments, though, what you guys think. Should he be the hand? Should he not? I want to hear from y'all. As we move on to our final story of the day, let's talk about the Texas Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Oh, hell yeah. Ooh, wrong one. Oh, hell yeah. There he is. So Stone Cold Steve Austin teased this week that he could be appearing in WWE for WrestleMania 41 fairly soon. Here's what he had to say on a recent episode or interview with The Athletic. This is an aggregation from WrestleOps. Stone Cold Steve Austin gave a tease for WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas next year. Quote, I said I won't leave Nevada. It's hard to get me out of the state, but WrestleMania next year is in Las Vegas. That's in Nevada, and that's about all that Stone Cold offered up there. But, of course, we know Broken Skull Ranch in Nevada, I believe just south of Reno. So Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of teasing like, hey, look, they weren't able to get me out to Philadelphia because I barely leave the state, but it's right there. I could make the drive down and come back up for just in time to play with my cats, which, by the way, the idea of Stone Cold Steve Austin missing WrestleMania to play with Pancho the Cat is one of the most wholesome and funniest things I've ever heard of. Shout out to Pancho the Cat. We love you. We respect you. Hopefully Pancho makes his WWE debut sometime soon. Would love to see him go scratching up people. Anyway, but this is obviously a major development. Stone Cold Steve Austin has not wrestled in a match ever since he beat Kevin Owens in the main event of WrestleMania a couple of years ago in Dallas. That was a big, big moment, and Stone Cold has basically said, that was it. I went out on my terms. I'm not doing this again. I'm not wrestling again, and we have no expectation, I think, for Stone Cold to wrestle again. That being said, could he come in and do a spot similar to what The Undertaker did this past year at WrestleMania and, be that special attraction or, come in and even up the odds or something? I totally could see that happening. And originally, I believe, reports indicated that Stone Cold was the person for that spot. And it would have made a lot more sense at WrestleMania 40 if it was Stone Cold rather than The Undertaker, because obviously Stone Cold and The Rock have that history, and it just made more sense. I personally got taken out of it. I was like, oh, okay, now this is just WWE doing intellectual property for the sake of intellectual property. But nevertheless, great moment. Stone Cold, though, every time he comes out, he's going to get a reaction. He is the most over star in the history of wrestling. And I'm not saying he's the biggest star, but he is the most over. When he enters a WWE arena, no one gets a pop like Stone Cold. No one. And, at his height, he was the biggest star in the biggest company during its most profitable time up until that point. Like, now it's WWE. It's just a whole different monster and beast compared to what it was back then. But, I still believe to this day, Stone Cold, like there's not anyone who can really touch him as far as the, just how over he was in terms of wrestling. And when that glass breaks, and it could break in Las Vegas or Mania, it would be epic. And they're trying to build this up to be the biggest WrestleMania of all time. You could argue, and you could make a very good argument at that Stone Cold would help ensure that. There's the potential for Rock and Roman at Mania 41, the potential for Cody and John Cena at WrestleMania 41. Putting Stone Cold in the mix, stamp of approval, glass break, everyone's going to go nuts. We'll see if that does end up happening, though. Obviously, like one of the biggest questions that I think needs to be answered is how do you fit him in? Because we're not sure, and we have no indication to believe that he's going to have a match. And Stone Cold has said, he's very much against having a match because he said, I got in shape for that one with Kevin Owens. That's it. Again, we'll see what happens. He's someone who is notoriously hard to get out for a match. He was offered a lot of money for Saudi shows. He was offered money for this Mania appearance this year, and he rejected it. So whatever he does, it would have to make sense. But the fact that he's teasing it shows you he's at least like, hey, we'll see what happens. But we will indeed see what happens. Let me know in the comments section, guys, what you think. How should Stone Cold be involved in WrestleMania 41, if at all? Do you want to see him there? Do you want to see him battle The Rock one last time? Let me hear from you. Also want to get your thoughts on Daniel Garcia, Mark Henry's son, and everything else I talked about in this video. Let me know in the comments section. Also, be sure to smash that like button so as many people as possible see this video. Subscribe so you get updated every single day with all the news updates, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Until next time, I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.